I've been in small business. I was in the import-export business, and I never used credit cards for a way to finance it. I went to a bank. But I know of friends of mine that it was so easy for them to go to a credit card and use the credit card for financing. Part of the reasons have been mentioned already. Oh, you got to go to SBA, it's too much paperwork, they're going to say no, for whatever reasons have been mentioned. And it's just, the process was too long. It was a lot easier to just go ahead and get a loan. And of course, when they had to pay the high interest rates and when they had to pay all the fees, the late fees and all that, they regretted that. But at the moment, they needed something to be done quickly. It's the moment because you're under all the pressure to get this done and get some money available, get some cash into the business. So I guess what the committee's been referring to is, how do we make this, because there's a lot of steps, and we know this with SBA, the accessibility and all that, the paperwork. What's the easiest way, to get this done? And by the way, credit cards do a heck of a job at marketing. I think they know how to market. They know how to make it easy, and it's on the moment when you need the money. And like I said, I've been a small businessman, but I never used the credit cards for the business. I use it for personal, but not for the business. It's so easy to just go ahead and get something because on the moment you need the money. So how do we make this? How do we make government more, or how do we work with you to become more responsive? And I don't want to get into Cuellar. You guys have been doing very well sharing the same mic together. But how do we get this competition? How do we make this more flexible? And keep in mind, put yourself in the shoes of a small business person. They need this on the moment. They're not going to go and do all this paperwork unless if it's a longer term type of situation. You got to put yourself in the shoes of a small business person. From anybody.
Well, part of the thing that we didn't talk about, we've identified our small businesses and small businesses use business credit cards. What we haven't talked about are the folks that are using our personal credit cards for the same reason, and we don't know that. So this is a lot of times, and I have no idea.
And they do that.
I know they do that.
They do that.
And the point of view of education is if they were to come into the organization, a bank, community bank, credit union, discuss what their plans are, I think we could handle a lot better. But some of these decisions are made independently by the individual, and we have no idea. Perhaps even some home equity loans have been done in this regard. We have no idea because they've never come in and talked to us.
And if I might answer, when I started my business, I had, I'd say, maybe 13, 14 credit cards. Sometimes I just pay the interest because I needed that lead time to become successful. I knew I could make it happen. And in all due respects, you indicate you went to the banks. Well, many of us don't have the capacity to do that. I came out of the Marine Corps 21 years. I never had a bank account. I was overseas for 15 years in my 21-year Marine Corps career. I never had a credit card. I was unknown. And many of us who come from communities throughout the United States never had bank accounts. Our families never had money. I grew up on surplus food in the projects in upstate New York, So nobody would look at me. The only way possible I was able to take this idea I had and move forward with it was to use credit cards. But I used them responsibly. I knew when my payables were coming in, and I knew that I would succeed over time. The banks would not let me in the door.
Right.
They would not talk to me.
And you're hitting the point that I want to emphasize is, as this former small business person in the import-export business and having a lot of folks on the border, going to the bank and, bank, credit union, whatever it might have been, it was a lot easier just on the moment to move it was to go with a credit card. I didn't do that, but again, you put yourself in their shoes. So what do we do? And I guess it's more to y'all. Is there anything that can be as flexible as a credit card, not being a credit card company?
Well,
and I'm sure there's some out there, but
I suppose we could develop that at the SBA or something. But I think it's, like I said earlier, it's the streamlining of the application process and the reams of paper that go along with it, and all of the disclosures and everything else that have to be made. Not that that's bad unto itself, but again, it's part of this whole regulatory burden. And if you could shift some of this, make it streamlined, and move forward with it, make it a low doc loan of some type. More banks would use it. But it is not an easy process to go through today. And I can only say streamline, and I don't have any particular examples of how I'd recommend doing it, but that's it.
Congressman, I think that's why the home equity lines have become so popular. That essentially what you have is a line of credit, and when you want to use it, you write a check. The disadvantage, of course, to the institution is that it's an off-balance sheet liability, and they really have no control. I mean, if I have a line of credit of $400,000 and I have drawn down nothing, tomorrow the bank could have a $400,000 loan outstanding to me without me even telling them they were going to have it.
If I might, because I don't know what time we're going to finish, Madam Chairwoman, so I'm going to take this opportunity, Madam Chairwoman, and Mr. Shabbat, Ranking Member, to thank this committee, and particularly under your leadership, ma'am, for what you're doing for service-disabled veterans and veteran-owned small businesses. We need your help. We appreciate your help. And it's not only our veterans, but our women in business and our minorities in business. So I want to thank you for all of your initiative and leadership.
Thank you. Dr. Lom, you want to answer?
Thank you. I would like to insert something. What I have to say will be a little bit fuzzy, but I think it should be a point that should be considered. Particularly the bootstrapper, particularly the students that I work with, one of the biggest problems is they don't have know-how. You had an import-export business. I recently heard someone who has expertise in that area addressing some study that he had done, but basically 65% of all small businesses wouldn't know where to turn to. They wouldn't have a clue where to start should they begin pursuing an import-export opportunity, which of course is a huge opportunity. The point that I want to raise is that know-how is so critical. I know the focus of today's meeting is capital itself, but if we have know-how, we don't necessarily need quite as much capital. And that's one of the biggest problems, one of the biggest roles that the SBA could perhaps play, and this goes to one of the earlier questions asked at the end. Students don't have know-how. They have all of these grand schemes, but they don't know how to actually act upon it. So if you want to make the capital more efficient, make the people more efficient through their knowledge enhancement.